Mm, Okay. Hello, hello to those who are here.
Good morning.
You know, a minute late. What can we do? What can we do? Welcome in. Uh, it's been a
Like
wild
we could have
morning.
just not brought it up. Nobody would have noticed, right?
Do you
They were all
think I
just too
have
excited.
to?
So
I have to come clean. I don't know why. I just do. Well, how is everyone else today? I'm already like exhausted, need to go back to bed. Today's already been too much for me at 10 a.m. How are you, Jacob?
it's been a hurried morning, hence our timing a little bit, but productive. We're moving.
I think it's time change, and I think we can all continue to blame that for at least one more week.
Oh, or longer, maybe till April would be probably convenient.
Mm. Yeah, I think we should. Why wouldn't we? Let's see how everyone's doing. Oh my gosh, see, Emily, we can't even complain. For Emily, it's 5 a.m. Sorry. So sorry, Emily. Proud of you. I do too. I do too. I have
Feel
tea.
unprofessional to go grab my coffee off the counter that's sitting 15 feet away.
Not at all. I'll show
Well, then
everyone
I'll
my
do that.
mug because I chose my mug specifically for this book. I felt like it worked. But I don't have coffee yet. I only have tea. It's not coffee o'clock yet for me, so hopefully here soon. How's everyone else? Yeah, I don't know why. I feel like this weekend's rough. It's hard to get started here. All week it has been, honestly. And Darcy wants to come in, so I'm also going to leave the frame for 1 minute. Everyone get comfortable. You go get your beverages. Tell me what you're drinking. I'll go let the dog in. Oh, it's just life,
Wow, looks like we timed that well.
I
I
know.
leave, I come back, Grace leaves. This is the live stream you're looking for, right?
This is what everyone's after. Yeah, Darcy needed in desperately, allegedly. So, but yeah, I showed everyone my mug, Jacob. I chose the Fox mug.
Love it.
I feel like it was good. And Hannah is doing a Lego set. Very nice. See, that sounds
Right
relaxing.
kind of weather out for that.
Yeah, maybe I just need to tone it down today and do something relaxing. I'm already high strung today. It's just happened. It just is what it is. Jacob's laughing because he's like, isn't that every day?
Yeah, but I didn't say it.
But you thought it. It was on your face. Well, how did everyone read this one? I'm curious about that before we get into, I don't know, details about the book, kind of how we all felt about it. How do you read it, Jacob?
I'm sticking with the audiobooks. It's a good medium for me. There's something to be said for reading it in paper, but the audiobooks are kind of just what's working for me right now.
Yeah. I did physically read it. I got it from the library. So there's the copy that I borrowed. So I did physically read this one, which was nice. I don't know. It's my preferred method, honestly, but
I'm gonna, if it's okay, just immediately go from our list of questions and leave that. Do you think for multiple perspective books that there's a difference for you in listening to it versus reading it? That I know probably in this live stream before I've been a vocal opponent of dual perspective books, but somehow listening to it where you actually get the difference in voices, completely different
experience.
situation. Yes,
Yeah.
experience for me.
I will say, I think what was hard for me is I read a portion of this and then Brendan wanted to listen to it in the car. So we listened to it like an hour of it. And I was like, I hate this because these are not the characters that I've cast. Like this voice just doesn't fit. And so I couldn't listen to it from there. But generally speaking, I do like books if they're going to have dual perspective, having two actors, voice actors. I do think that adds to it.
Yeah, I think it almost flips it for me where I go from not liking it on paper with dual perspective, and then if it's audiobook and multiple readers, that becomes a very positive factor for it. And it's like, well, even if the book wasn't that great, maybe the readers were good.
That's fair. I've never thought about it that way.
Neither had I.
Emily read the ebook, so her and I are kind of in a similar boat. And then Hannah said she listened while reading along. I feel like I need both. Yes, okay. Yeah, I need to like put out a disclaimer. If I butcher the Korean, maybe Jacob remembers some pronunciation better than I do, because it was kind of all up in the noggin, and I don't speak Korean, so could be rough.
The problem for me is going to be I never saw the words. I tried to look up a character list just to have it for reference, and all of it's just going to be like whatever I remember from how they pronounced it because I can't visualize it at all.
So Hannah got the best of both worlds. She knows how it's written and how it sounds. Lyndon, I listened to it, and the character's voices really brought the score down for me. That's how I felt, but I think we can talk more about that. But for me,
get straight into ratings then.
Yeah, maybe since he brought up his score went down with the characters. I never read the names at the top of the chapter, but it's perfect. He made it clear to persons who it was. Oh. You feel like
all the chapters have the character names, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is a good point. She did a good job kind of making it clear who was reading or what character you're following. Yeah, let's do ratings. Let's get to it.
Do you have one that comes to mind? Have you already thought this through? Something that I can do to stall so I can figure out my rating?
I thought you might want to stall. I think I'd probably give this one a 3.
I think that's about where I am as well. I think I started off higher than that, and we'll get into the discussion of it some, but
yeah,
it kind of slowly trailed off. But the first half of the book, I might have been up at 3.5 or 4 even, and it just kind of it petered out a little bit.
Yes, I totally know what you're saying. Okay, yeah, we'll get into it.
I am curious to hear other people's ratings, see what Lyndon's was brought down to, or USDA Prime's was brought down to.
Yes, come on up. Come on. Sorry, the dog has to come up. Come on, jump. He's just gonna like bug me the whole time. You want to come up? No. Okay, great. Okay, let's see. Hannah gave it a 3. I usually like retellings, but this one wasn't my favorite. Yes, a lot of our questions that kind of arose while we were thinking about what to talk about this book revolve around retellings. So we'll get to talk about retellings as a whole and this one in particular. And then Emily said she loved it, a 5. I'm glad you loved it. I can't wait to hear more of your thoughts about it. And then Lyndon Tuesday decided to give it a 2.75. 2.75. Keiko is here, and she would also give it a 3. So a lot of 3s, a couple outliers on both sides. It's kind of fun. I feel like it's a little less consistent than some of our other reads. Like a little more varied in rating.
A little more varied. Yeah. Always good. Get some good variation in the discussion.
Well, I guess we should start at the top, start at the beginning. I don't know if anyone else had thoughts, but what did you guys think about the author's note right at the beginning?
I know. I think I made a note in Fable about this one because it was one of the only points where I was listening to it where I had my phone in front of me. Most of the time I was doing something else at the same time. And then I've really come to be a fan of the author's notes like this. I know Babel is another one that has this where it's kind of just, it's almost a little bit of sass from the author where it's like, this is my perspective on it. Like, this is fiction. Here's why it's okay. But I liked on this one her kind of setting the stage of like, I've done the research. The intent is this. I really like that where you get that initial communication that feels directly pointed at the reader.
Yeah.
I think it really adds to it.
Yeah. I usually like them as well. I do feel like we live in a time where I'm like, okay, they have to disclaim just writing anything they're gonna write. But I did like how she kind of said, I know these, like the mythology, I know the folklore, I know all of these things very in depth, and then I feel like I'm allowed to play with it how I see fit for my own story. And I kind of liked that.
And just the acknowledgement that this is not intended to be a 100% accurate representation of what the stories that exist are. Like, this is a new contribution to
Yeah.
something that's in that world. I'm not replicating that. This is new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sets the stage well.
Hannah said she also appreciates it to provide
Yeah.
context. Yeah, it also tells you, like, it is sometimes nice to know where these ideas are coming from when you're not a part of that culture, to like, know where the inspiration is. And then if you want to go learn more about that mythology, that folklore, then you have that opportunity. So that's nice.
Is it a book with what you read of this? Are you interested in learning more about Korean mythology and kind of that world?
I always like retellings, mythology, folklore. So I would definitely pick up more. I don't know that this book in particular spurred me to want more, but as a whole concept, I tend to enjoy stories that have roots in like past mythology or stories.
Gotcha.
What about you?
Yeah, I thought that the world building in this at the start, it's tough to know how much of it was specific to this book versus tied to the mythology, but I really enjoyed the first portion of this book
Mm-hmm.
and the setting, and it's largely just one that's unknown to me. I think that you have we'll get into it more with retellings, but like you have the like Percy Jackson sort of series that gives you the retellings of Western mythologies, and so those are much more familiar.
Mm-hmm.
I, I definitely have interest in reading more about other mythologies. I've read a little bit in Shinto mythology, but not extensively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely would have interest in it.
Yeah. Emily said she also wants to read other cultures mythology now. So hopefully when we get to the like talking a little bit deeper in retellings, we can give some good suggestions if any of us have read some retellings that we love. So how did everyone feel about the world and setting, since you kind of brought that up? I was a little surprised in the era this took place, like kind of in the 90s, right? If I remember right. I thought it was an interesting, 92. So I thought it was an interesting era to choose for this story, but also I didn't think anything in the story really pointed to being like 90s specific either.
Yeah, the era was almost irrelevant in some ways because they're all immortal in some sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just felt like it didn't add to it. And then at the end of the book, obviously it's now 2018 or something when, well, now we're talking about the end, but when they kind of come back together, at least we assume.
Yes. So.
We assume. I thought it was an interesting period of time to choose. I feel like people usually choose older, I don't know, older periods of times.
Just kind of in that middle. It's interesting the fact that it's in that middle ground where it's not that long ago, but I see what you're
Yeah.
saying.
But I
Yeah,
agree, it didn't have a big impact.
I think I just like the setup of it, where you have your detective, who obviously is immortal, but like serving his penance. The setting of having him be a detective as the way of kind of getting through that, um, and then just it being in a city. There was a lot of it that I think just played well into the mythology of it, being like putting those characters in a more modern space without needing to have it feel forced, I think is what stood out to me.
Yeah. Lyndon also said that from being half Korean, it spurred his desire to learn more of their mythology. I feel like I've read a lot of very interesting Korean mythology. We'll talk about it. Oh no. We'll talk about it. Emily said it helped make it feel modern but separate to real life. Not a lot of tech to distract. That's actually a good point. That wasn't like a player in the story that you would kind of have to have be a player more modern wise. I saw a review that said it felt relevant. Sit there. Yeah, I did forget about the VHS too.
I would say that that is accurate to how I feel about it. I didn't actually think about the time period at all. Like you said 1992, and I was like trying to reprocess the book into that context a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't have like smartphones, but other than that, it didn't cross my mind at all.
Yeah, I did. I will say one of my favorite scenes is when she's hiding the VHS tapes and he instantly sees them. Or he's like, "Why do you have those?" And she's like, "What? Why do you know?" Well, I guess we can talk about our main characters a little. That kind of leads into that. And the romance tropes, the romance overall.
Favorite characters? Go back to
Mhm.
the old classics.
I know. Let's start with favorite characters. Or even if you wanted to say if you preferred like Hani or Ahsoka. Either of those questions. Do you have answers to either of those, Jacob?
I think it's Soka for both.
Yeah.
I think. It's a little bit to what Lyndon brought up earlier about the voices bringing it down. Um, Somi's reader was not my favorite. Um, it might just be Sokka because of the reader more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought he did a better job for sure than the female reader just didn't fit as much for me. And Keiko says she agrees.
Yeah, there that would have. I'm glad that Somi was not a more main character, like as a voice in it more. It would have been tougher. It would have had a lower rating.
Yeah. I can't remember the police chief's name either, but that's a good one, Lyndon. A solid character.
Shin.
Jim, I think so. That is a very solid character. And then Hannah said, I think part of why I didn't love this book is because I wasn't a fan of any of the characters. That's fair. I don't know. Hani was a complicated character for me to really like. I didn't really dislike her. I didn't really love her. I didn't like Somi.
I think a lot of the arcs at the beginning, I liked the setup and the initial character creation, and then when we got into their plot development throughout, and really probably into their relationship more, I just had a harder time liking the characters.
Yeah. And Emily said that she liked Hani with her backstory, love a murderous past. I get that. I didn't like the whole Jack the Ripper situation. I was like, okay, why are we dragging Jack the Ripper into the conversation? But I did like how she was a lady with a backstory. She's seen it all, almost. So
I
yeah,
almost feel like that was just putting it in the, that's another element to taking the mythology and putting it in the real world.
yeah. I didn't
It
like
did feel a
it.
little random, but it gives it real life context and something that you're maybe more familiar with.
Keiko agrees. Came out of nowhere. I was like, okay, what?
Would it have been better if there was some famous Korean serial killer that she went back and killed?
I
Is
don't
that better?
know. I sometimes I
Is it
like
just
it.
weird because it's London?
Maybe that was part of it. I just didn't. I was like, let's stay where we are. Let's keep it within these confines. Like, I don't think it helped her character for me. I don't think it helped the story to name drop Jack the Ripper for me. I was like, okay, this doesn't add context for me for her character.
That's fun. I think it really did for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's partially putting it in the real world and then also thinking about it on the time frame aspect that all right,
Yeah.
clearly we're in the early 90s. This is a key part. Timeline really matters. Uh, but then, okay, she was back killing people 100 years ago. It gave a like context to the longevity almost.
Mhm.
I didn't realize this stood out to me. This is great to have these discussions.
I know. I I didn't realize how much I disliked it until I started thinking about it. I'm like, "Hold on." Okay, so everyone shared some favorite characters. Did you have any favorite creatures? Maybe just even outside of, like, the character that they were.
Just like the description of them, I don't know that there's any that come to mind. The moth at the very beginning that covers the camera. And kind of like the moth.
Perfect. Um,
Uh,
I
do you
feel
have
like
one in mind? Is that why this
I
question made the list?
it is, because I really like, she's kind of fairy-esque, and I'm sorry I cannot remember the name of
Oh,
her, but she's the one who kinda gives them the prophecy.
yeah,
Uh
they go to that mountain.
Mhm. She's my favorite character. I'm like, if I was cast in this book, she's who I'd wanna be.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Um, so Emily's kinda on the same page with that. Then hated the gods. Yeah. They really kinda seemed like gods, I guess. Like, the way they just didn't care, "Well, we're just gonna see how that plays out for them."
Like, there's a lot of risk in this. Let's just see how Soka does first, and we'll go
Yeah.
from there.
Like,
Like, we'll
whatever.
deal with it if it's still a problem.
The demon babies, are those the what are they called? The Wishin?
Are those the
I
ones that
can't
were off on the island
Island? I
when they
think
went to
so.
rescue the Gia? G?
The
The
witness, I
girl?
don't
The
remember.
witness? The human?
The human? Yeah. They seemed feral. They seemed concerning. For sure. Yeah, I don't know if I had a favorite character outside I think I would almost have to piggyback on Lyndon saying the police chief, because he was a nice, steady character.
He was good. There was a little while where I thought that they were misreading the situation and they were gonna come back and he was gonna be the
Maybe the
thing, the
guy who
monster.
is like, the monster in the end, like, maybe he's my favorite character.
Yeah. That I like that, okay.
I feel like
If
that
anybody has pronunciations for these 2, feel free to
throw it out there.
to throw
Well,
them in
no.
there so we don't just keep saying the monster. It's like Eruction? Eruction?
Yeah, but at the end, I feel like they said he was, like, kind of a different monster altogether,
Okay.
or was, like, a more prominent monster, I think. Again, we are lame in our knowledge here, but
Author's note, we're going to mispronounce.
there's no disclaimer at the beginning. We don't know what we're saying. But yeah, that'd probably be my favorite. And then favorite creature is the little fairy-esque character on
I
the mountain.
completely forgot about that part.
And she's
Yeah,
like,
that's a
"Get
good
the
that's a good pick.
go." I don't know. I liked her. Well, so between the characters, some people said you would say Soka, some people said Hani. Do you feel like you wanted them to be together? Were you rooting for this couple? And are they still together? I wanna hear everyone's thoughts.
Are they still together?
Are they still together? Did they stay together?
When she gets reincarnated? Is that what you mean?
Mhm. Yeah. Are they
That feels like a book 2 sort of question. We gotta see how she gets reincarnated. Does
I
How
don't
does
know.
reincarnation work in this world? Like, does she have memories of past lives? I don't know.
No.
So, I don't think I was rooting for them at the beginning. There's
Mm,
the flip for me, and I liked how everything was set up, but they felt like they were separate characters, and I liked them as separate characters. I think that I know I'm just splitting it arbitrarily into halves, but the first half I thought was a really good setup for just a fantasy series. We didn't need to
mhm.
turn it into a romantasy.
Yeah.
And then once we got into that, I was like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see this, but it
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't what pulled me into the book.
Yeah. I mean, as a seasoned romance reader myself,
Sure.
I mean, it was enemy it reeked of enemies to lovers right away. I was like, "It's gonna happen." It just is. They pulled out all the tropes, Jacob. We had the one bed at the end. We had what else did we have? There were a few red thread of fate at the end.
Well,
They were
right off the
throwing
bat,
tropes.
you mentioned in Fable the balance with the coffee at the end of chapter 1 and start of chapter 2. Immediately, you see it right there.
I saw it right away. So, I think it wasn't something I was rooting for or against. It was something I knew was gonna happen, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. I'm like, "Oh, this is how it's gonna go." Um, are they still together today? I don't know. I think Hani's a wild card, so I don't think so.
I'm gonna flip and go that they are.
How positive.
Tough to know what she reincarnated as, but yes.
And I think Hana was saying they do go into maybe her reincarnation and things in the next book. I don't think that one's out yet. I think it comes out this year though, if people are interested. So if you're planning to read that. I knew it was enemies to lovers, yep. But you really didn't want them to end up together. That is very fair. Why didn't you want them to be together? Just out of curiosity. Oh, she already answered that, sorry. I think I would have appreciated if it focused more on their friendship and how they're each dealing with their own struggles. Yeah. I feel like it was something where they kind of just stumbled into being together. I don't know. I liked her being like kind of manipulative with it at first because I thought it made her a stronger character, but then it's like, okay, they're just going to be together. Whatever. I feel like the
Even
romance was forced. That's
even
fair.
if they had like what Keiko's suggesting here, and it spends more time on their struggles and their friendship for the first book and then transitions. I think it
Mm,
was just the transition was too quick.
yeah, that's fair. They both need to work on themselves. They've got a lot going on. And Emily's optimistic like you.
Yep.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're gonna write the series that way, it's got to work out, right?
It's gotta work out.
It's got to work out.
Two immortal people, they're never gonna get mad at each other.
No, it always works.
And then Hannah's saying she thinks it comes out in May or June. Yeah, I definitely had it written
Uh,
down somewhere.
June 3rd. I just pulled
June
it up
3rd.
on the side here.
Okay. Is anyone gonna read that? Just out of curiosity. I know we're kind of jumping past some of the romance. But yeah, is anyone planning to read that next book when it comes out? The description I saw for it points to yes. Oh, about them being together? Oh, read in the what is it called? The summary or whatever.
I I could actually see potentially reading the next one.
Yeah.
I think that the world has enough that I liked, and there was a good portion of this book that I liked, even though it kind of fell off for me at the end. I think it is one that I would probably read the next one.
I think she's well written, and I feel like I could really picture everything going on. It wasn't too difficult to understand despite having so much of it be in another language and about a culture and a mythology I don't know. Um, but I could still follow along well. Like now, can I say anything? No, I can't remember anything. But I could see it happening. I don't know if it's high on my priority list, but I wouldn't say no for reading it.
Yeah.
Emily's gonna read it. Lyndon is not gonna read it unless we make it
Well,
a book.
so then we just make it a book club group. We get another discussion on book 2 here.
There you go.
Help Lennon out.
Hana's interested in what happens. That makes sense. And then maybe, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Keiko. I feel like I've got a lot on my plate, so we'll see. It's not high priority, but sometimes the first book is just setting the scene and then we get to dive into more interesting stuff.
I think I agree on that, and with Hana that I'm partially just curious
Yeah.
where it continues to build towards.
Yeah. So, on that note, kind of about this book as a whole, on wanting to continue, on it being a first book in a series, how did everyone feel about the depth of this novel? And I think just a general question, how much does the predictability of a book impact your enjoyment of a story? Just it's a broad question.
I think it depends a little bit on the genre. if you have a mystery or detective type thing, if it's predictable, I think that pulls a lot of it, but pulls a lot of the enjoyment for me. Um, in a book like this, for me, this one was pretty predictable, other than getting the actual person who was the monster wrong. The rest of the story felt pretty predictable, and it wouldn't. I wouldn't say that it took away from the story, but I definitely prefer books where you don't have an accurate picture of what's going to come.
Yeah.
You're kind of on your toes, like you're still excited about it. You're looking forward to it because you haven't already planned it out in your head.
Mhm. How did you guys feel about this book specifically? Did you guys find it predictable? Did you know who was gonna be the monster? Because when they introduced the red herring of the book, right, I was like, "This seems really obvious." I put it in our Fable chat for that chapter. I was like, "So this feels, like, super obvious, so that's kind of worrisome?" Question mark. But I didn't fully have the idea of who it was gonna be until a couple chapters before. So it wasn't like I called it halfway through. A few chapters before they announced it, I'm like, "Hmm."
But you did know ahead of time.
I did, yeah.
Nice.
Especially with, I guess, stuff with it might have been when Somi kind of she's the nightmare about what's going on with her, and you don't see who it is. I was like, "Oh," because I'm like, she just Hani's been so, um, adamant about this guy being around her and protecting her, and I'm like, "I think she's made a wrong call somewhere along the line," so, yeah.
That was the scene where I thought it was Shim.
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
"Oh, he's been such a great guy this whole book." Like, he was in the precinct at the same time when they had,
Yeah,
the other guy whose name starts with a T in the holding cell. I
um,
was I was convinced it was Shem at that point.
yeah.
So that element of it was unpredictable to me up to the point that it was fully revealed. What? So that worked out.
So there's that, um, but other parts were predictable. But sometimes I don't mind that. I don't know, it just depends. It depends on where it's gonna go from there. Knowing there's a second book, I almost wish it had been less predictable because I wish there was more, like I think what it is after this book, I don't feel an urge to, like, "Oh, I gotta pick up that next one. I gotta know what happens." I'm like, "Well, she wrapped this part up pretty well." I don't know if we're going somewhere else for this next story and just following the same characters, but I don't feel like there's anything left that I need to have sorted out for me.
There's no cliffhanger for you. Nothing left
Mhm.
unresolved.
Yeah.
I
What do
agree.
you guys think? Let's see. I like predictable romance element and a bit of mystery for the rest of the plot, but I like having clues. Yeah. It's fun to feel like you're solving it with them, or there's like little hints, little breadcrumbs.
I think that first part too, having that predictable romance element, if it's a set of characters that you are rooting for, like you want the relationship to work, or you want them to end up together, however it is that it starts. If you're rooting for it, then having it be predictable and you're looking forward to it the whole time, I think I agree with that. Where
Yeah.
that's a fun predictability to include.
Mhm. Yeah. I have a smidge of a feeling it would be him when we met him. Oh my gosh, Hana's radar is so good. He had a big enough presence, yeah, when we met him that I felt like he would be important. Good radar. I was like, "Why does this annoying guy keep showing up, dude?" He's
What do
such
we have, like 7 total characters?
I know. I'm like, "He's way too into Somi. Let's move on." I was suspicious from her nightmare, so that's where I was kind of suspicious too, but only after realizing who it was near the reveal. Yeah, that's where I kind of got that inkling that I was like, "Yeah, I really do think that was a red herring for us." The other guy was.
Yeah, it did feel like it wasn't gonna be the first person. They
Yeah.
weren't gonna be right on it initially.
Um, True, he was suspiciously present. That's such a good way to put it, Emily. Suspiciously present, always there. So moving up, moving on. Any more thoughts you guys have on the book as a whole before we kind of just talk about retellings and suggestions and stuff. Any scenes you want to hash out, any characters you want to discuss, creatures, about the next book, what you think it'll be about, anything. Okay. I was oblivious. Yeah. I think it.
That's where I was.
But sometimes it is more fun to not hunt for the answers and kind of just let it unfold how the book is supposed to unfold.
Enjoy the intrigue of it.
Yes. I definitely am someone who also just gets suspicious. I'm like, it could be him. Could be him. And then just so I get to be right at the end, I'm like, see, I did at one point think it might be him. One thought I have to share is that one little creature, oh my gosh, that they send that has like the mask and then the scary smile, kind of Joker-esque. Oh, that one scared me to bits, team.
Didn't like that one.
I did not like that little creature.
It was an odd mix where there's an awful lot of this that could have been like just enjoyable fantasy, and then they threw in all the various monsters that were included, the unrulies.
Yes.
That it felt like she went pretty extreme with making them not scary, but yet more gory than they needed to be or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, this is not fun. This is not fun. At least it is. I wonder if this is YA. No, it probably isn't because it's got a lot of romance. So I'm not sure.
It's not that far. Like you wouldn't need to cut more than like 4 paragraphs to make it YA though. That's not a lot.
True. That's true. Let's see. I hate the idea that coffee brought.
Yeah.
Okay, that part did kind of get to me too. It's like I felt like that kind of fantasy is getting more popular where it's like a cozy fantasy, and I feel like that was a cozy element in this story was like the coffee shop, them spending a lot of time there, and then that being the monster's downfall. I don't know. What did you think of it, Jacob? Did you like it?
No, the coffee element. The whole book was focused around coffee. I mean that was the whole dichotomy in their relationship stuff at the beginning, how that was all set up.
Yeah.
I like coffee, but I think the idea that was the entire solution felt forced also.
Yeah. How did you guys feel about Hani's sacrifice at the end? Because I think that kind of leads us into like the retelling aspect of this story and what is our moral lesson from this story? And does it have to have one? That's kind of what I was left thinking. But let's finish our talk on the coffee. Yeah, forced. Like you said too, Jacob. It was kind of we should have left that out. I saw somewhere that she originally intended for it to be YA, but as she wrote, she decided it would work better as not. She was like, the smut will sell, team. let me add it in. And then way too cheesy. Yeah, I felt like she had a very interesting dichotomy of like these terrifying monsters that she described very well. I was terrified. And then these very kind of like cheesy aspects. Sometimes those work together, sometimes not. I don't know. Didn't expect her to die because it was a romance. I thought she would live. I thought I did too. I thought she'd outsmart the god somehow.
I liked that element of it. The unexpected, her dying because it's a romance, especially with reincarnation as an option. It's like the death isn't as much of a barrier there. Yeah, there's still a book too.
That's true. Let's see. Saw Hani making the deal from a mile away, but I liked how it showed her character development. Yeah, I mean, she started to care more about other people.
Especially, it talked a bunch throughout about how she wouldn't necessarily, if it came down to her having to admit that she was the Scarlet Fox to save Somi, that she wasn't sure that she would. So then the flip and her actually making the sacrifice to save Sokka.
Yeah, and she saved Somi too. Or wait, no, she wanted to, but Somi
Wanted to.
wouldn't give up. So, yeah, it is a big shift in her character. I was also not expecting her to die, but I think it sets the story up for the next book. I know they're gonna be a little detective team together. Maybe it will be cute. Yes. She does have character development. He does too. So, I mean, that is something that was here, whether you loved it or not. I think I'm glad it had that element. So, for a retelling, and I looked at the definition, it's like just the telling of telling a story again or differently. A new version of a story is a retelling. So, there's no hard and fast rules, it would seem. However, usually I think when people take these older stories, I feel like stories used to have more of a like a moral you're supposed to gain from it, or a lesson you learn. Did we feel like this story had it? Do we feel like retellings need to have that? I don't know. It just got me thinking about that. Big questions, Jacob.
I think for me, you know, the original often does. Like the mythology, the fables have some moral to the story. And I think it's nice when your retelling is able to present that either in a new context or present the same moral in a new way.
Mhm.
I don't know that I really felt like I got a strong moral out of this one, but I also don't know the original story that it's retelling. So it kind of ties back to the earlier conversation that I probably have interest in learning the mythology more and then
Mhm.
reading book two.
And also just the conversation of reading mythology from different cultures. Do different cultures have more morals or less morals in stories, or what was
Hmm.
the purpose of certain stories for different cultures? That's kind of interesting to delve into as well, separately. What?
Yeah.
You think into some retellings you've read?
No, just mostly thinking about mythologies that there's one of my favorite examples is just like Norse mythology has a tree of life and the underworld is below the tree. Shinto mythology, the underworld is below the tree. And those are very, very different parts of the world, but you start to see similarities in the mythology that way. And just
Mhm.
starting to take what you were saying and just try to think through different mythological stories and yeah, are there morals that you start to see existing as a common thread between cultures?
Hannah also says, I feel like mythology as a whole tends to have a moral to the story. I don't know that I felt a moral here either. I guess we see a lot of character development at the end. And maybe that's the moral, that no matter your past, you can, make sacrifice or change those things, or sacrifice for love or whatever. I don't think it was particularly strong feeling at the end, but that might be what it is.
So I think that gets to the other part of your question then. Do you think that it needs to, like, even if the original has a moral, does the retelling have to?
I mean, by definition, I don't think so. I think I like feeling like there's a little bit of a moral, something to like really make it impactful for me to get like probably a higher rating, a more impactful experience for me, or a book I'm going to hold on to. I think that is something I enjoy. Yeah.
I agree.
Um, what was the moral in the Percy Jackson series? Good Q. I haven't read those since I was
Yeah, it's
in middle
probably
school.
worth a reread. Say
We should
say
probably
the
bring
next series for next book. Just reread the series.
I know, I don't know. Those are like classic, like Harry
So
Potter-esque,
good.
Boy Who Lived, Chosen One type vibe, right? I don't know. I haven't read them in so long. I'm sure you know, Lyndon. I'm sure you read them last week.
Yeah.
Brendan certainly did. Traditionally, folklore has a lesson, but this diverged from a classic
Yeah.
retelling.
I guess for me, I don't think this one not having a moral took away from it. Like, a moral might have added if
Mhm.
there was more of a lesson.
Yeah.
It not having it, I thought was fine as even as a retelling.
I could be remembering this incorrectly, but I think I learned in school that typically mythology was used to explain phenomena as well as teach lessons. There you go. I don't know. I guess there's no wrong or right answer for it. I was hoping there was. I was hoping it was cut and dry. You know, kind of like,
You were gonna look up the definition, we were gonna get a clear-cut answer
yeah.
for
I thought it was going to be like prosecco versus champagne. It's like there's a clear difference. There's a distinction. Not
Prosecco
everything's
versus
champagne, you know?
yeah.
And then Emily said yes to that too. We learned that as well. So there does tend to be a lesson. Do you guys like having a lesson? Do you like having a moral? And is there a story, a retelling that you have loved that you'd like to share with the group? Because I feel like this might have made some of us want to read some more retellings, learn some more mythology and folklore.
And
Do you
Emily,
have?
if you have, like, Maori retellings that you're aware of, even if we don't do it for book club, that would be interesting to
Yeah,
hear, like,
throw them
recommendations
out
there.
there. I would say this one, I think because it is like from the same culture, it is also like Korean mythology. The one that came to my mind was The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by xxoo. Loved that story. And I think it did, well, I don't want to like directly compare them, but I think it was very strong in its convictions. It was very, I don't know. I felt like the characters were really strong. It did feel like a moral lesson, and it felt almost more like a folklore and a retelling than this story. And maybe it was those modernizations we talked about that she did for this story.
One Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea is set so much out of the current world, where
Hmm.
this one brings it into that context a little bit more, so it doesn't feel as much like a retelling.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Can't say I've ever read a retelling aside from this one. That's wrong. Linton, wait. Girl Fell Beneath the Sea was a retelling. Yes. It is a Korean. I forget which folklore it is based on, or like she pulled from. But it was a retelling.
Let's see if we can find it real quick here.
See, Keiko also said she didn't know that was a retelling either, but she loved that book. So
I found that out on Thursday when you told me, so.
I thought we all knew this, you guys. Are you looking up which one it was based
Yeah,
on?
I'm trying to find the myth.
Okay. She had it on her website too. It was a reputable source. So I was like, okay. Not
The Tale
really.
of Shimchong
Oh, okay.
is the folk tale that it's based on.
And I know she's also inspired by Studio Ghibli or Ghibli. I don't know if I'm saying that right either, team. Okay. But we all know what we're talking about here. I think Spirited Away was probably the inspiration there. But it's very similar to that. Okay. Not really only children's books. Percy Jackson is technically a retelling too. Everyone in the chat loves Percy Jackson. I'm sure. Yeah, see, everyone in the chat loves Percy Jackson. Yeah, I think that's the one that stands out to me the most for a retelling I really love. But I have more on my shelf, so I do think this book has made me want to explore more real retellings for sure. So if nothing else, it gets those bonus points.
I'm trying to think of other retellings that come to mind. There's nothing jumping out, but I always just am interested in mythology. Love that side of books. So if there are others, they kind of have immediate appeal just on that basis alone. I don't
Yeah,
think I have anything on the shelf though.
yeah. A lot of people love the Song of Achilles, Circe, I think. Circe. I'm again not entirely sure. I've never read those ones, but those are Greek, right? If anyone's read
Mhm.
those.
Yeah, they both are.
Um, so Those are some retellings that are popular. A lot of Greek mythology retellings. I kind of like deviating from that because I feel like that's widely used.
I was thinking the same thing, that part of the appeal for reading this or Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea is getting away from the Western mythology that has so many retellings, or even just, well, yeah, I guess they are retellings, but there's so many versions of Western and Greek and Roman mythology, especially out there, that getting into the ones that I'm less familiar with, it feels like you get to learn it new. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like that you don't quite have that with Greek or Roman in the same way at this point.
Very true. Well, team, I feel like that was kind of the recap of the book. I feel like this discussion was actually more interesting than I thought it might be because the book I felt like was, pretty like straightforward, simple, a little predictable, but I had a lot of fun. We had a lot to talk about. So the next thing on the agenda is our next book. I think this time what we decided, I know we change it every time. Something will stick one day, okay? We are going to do just 3 books in 3 different genres for everyone to vote on. Since y'all are consistent members of the crew, you can put in the chat right now when I announce them which one you want, and then you can also go vote again. I'll put it on Instagram, and then you can go vote again on YouTube. You guys are the most important. You get triple the votes. So if you'd like to vote here before we sign off, feel free to. The first book is Blood Over Bright Haven. I know that was on our list for last time. I decided to roll it over to this list because it came in second. So I think we'll do that going forward. Maybe, you guys, maybe. It's all work in progress. But I rolled that one over. The other 2 books are different genres. So I did put a romance in. Jacob was super excited about that. He's like, that's what
going to be my vote. I don't even need to hear the other 2.
The other book is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. That one just came out, and it is, I think, inspired by Sleepless in Seattle. It's like a radio talk show host. So there's that. And the third one is a sci-fi novel. It's called Annie Bot, and it is a story of basically a robot built to be the perfect girlfriend, but she is like artificially intelligent, so she starts learning, and that's kind of the premise of that one. So those are the 3 very different books: a romance, a sci-fi, and a fantasy. So if you guys want to vote before we wrap up, Jacob, do you have your vote?
So Blood Over Bright Haven, First Time Caller, Annie Bot.
Those are the 3. And I will put on YouTube right after as well.
I don't want to bias the
crew. You let them all vote first. Let's see what everyone's vote is.
I'll follow.
I think we have quite a few for Blood Over Bright Haven. We have Lyndon, Keiko, Hannah. I'm sure these are all for Bright Haven, right? I think. And then sci-fi romance, a sci-fi, and then the other book is a romance.
I think Annie Bot seems like that's the sci-fi one, right? But it would have some amount of romance to it, it sounds like, just from what the plot is. That one's intriguing to me from an AI perspective, and I think we could have some interesting conversation around it. Just depends if are we doing this for the enjoyment of the book or for the discussion?
A little bit, but why not both,
There we go.
Emily, you were between those 2. And then, you're going to go with Blood Over Bright Haven. But see, the thing is, you can vote for that here, and then you can go and vote for First Time Caller on a different.
You'll immediately cancel out your own vote in another spot.
You have the opportunity. So, okay, let me write this down.
Blood Over Bright Haven seems like a runaway in what we're
I know it does, because Lyndon, Keiko, Hannah all voted for that. Am I correct? And Emily's going to put her vote there. So all 4 of you guys.
And I would vote for that over First Time Caller.
You said
I know it's a shock.
I'll throw my vote at First Time Caller to diversify it. Okay. Oh, he says Annie Bot seems a little romancy.
Even though it's sci-fi.
but it's also sci-fi. Okay, but I'm down. Okay. And then if not, Blood Over Brighthaven, your second vote is Annibot. Okay. Well, I wrote down all of your first votes. I will list the poll right after this, and I'll remember today because usually I forget for a couple hours. I'm going to do it right now. Famous last words. Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? Thank you guys so much always for making time every month to chat with us. It's always so fun. Yeah, I'll put a poll on Instagram, YouTube. Anything else, Jacob, to share? Any other thoughts?
I don't think so. This was the first book I've read that has any level of smut in it, so that was my first exposure to it.
There's
It
better.
was pretty minimal, but
yeah, there's better out there.
I feel like you would have chosen other books if that was what we were targeting.
Yes, definitely. I know that's what everyone in the chat's dying to read as a group. No, there's better. There's better. What else? Hannah's laughing at you.
That's fair.
That's fair.
I thought it was last thoughts. I thought we could get that and then get out of the.
Just end it. See, Emily's like, it was very tame.
It was tame, but it existed, and it hasn't existed at all in other books that I've read.
What can you
It's
do?
not a genre that I've really delved into much.
You hate to see it, folks. We all feel bad for him. Okay. I will put up the polls. I will see you guys next month. It'll probably be Saturdays if that's still working for everyone. Saturday mornings. I work on Sundays now, so unless we did afternoons, I'd have a harder time with that. So yeah. I could put up a poll for the date too. But yeah, I think that's all for now.
Sounds good.
Have a great Saturday, everyone. See you next time. Oh. Okay. Bye.